Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests, if they're here. Have you ever wondered where evaluations came from? Do we naturally evaluate ourselves and evaluate others as part of our nature? Are we constantly, let's say, critiquing ourselves and comparing ourselves to others? And perhaps there's a better way to really approach this so that we can evaluate in a way that it soars us to a higher level, that it takes us to another place where we can transcend rather than descend. Let me take it back to Dove. Most of you may know Dove, the soap. They came up with the idea that perhaps we can help people evaluate themselves. And by doing so, they can reach a higher level by comparing to themselves. Very interesting approach. And they've done this, and it's just very recent that they put together this segment that I'm going to show you. And I want you to observe very carefully with this the two things: self-evaluation and other evaluation. Now, as Toastmasters, we do a lot of other evaluation. And possibly when we look at the video at home and see ourselves, we're doing a lot of self-evaluation. So it always is going on. The key here is, how do we get to a higher level? How do we soar to a level where it empowers us rather than disempowers us? And this is the question that Duff wanted to answer. So that, of course, you can eventually, by looking at the contrast evaluation, use their product more often. Very clever approach, and some of you may have seen this approach. I'm going to describe it briefly, then I'm going to show it to you. And you get an opportunity to really evaluate what it means in this context, and also for yourself, and also as a club, or as evaluators. Here's the scenario. The scenario is that they thought, why don't we take a person and ask them what they thought of themselves in terms of looks. We're going by looks. Dove, as you would imagine, is external product. And then they said, let's take somebody else and let's have that person describe this person. So now we get two different opinions, the self and the other. And then let's see what the contract is in a visual form. And then let's see what you can make out of it, whether you buy Dove soap or not. But from a Toastmaster's perspective, we can look at it and say, there are two evaluations that are always going on, and we want to be aware of that, and we want to have some processes that I'll share with you that allows you to really be conscious about that. The model that I call the SOAR model, and the model for the self, and the model that I call the SORP model for others. Very interesting approach. But I'm also going to ask you to have a participatory session here. So I'm going to ask those of you that are closest to one of those iPads to raise your hands, and I'm going to ask you to press play when I ask you to. Who would be able to do that by raising their hands?
Well, should it be somebody that's on that side?
Then she's elected you to. When I say go, we'll play it so that the sound is synchronized. So who's going to take ownership of that last one and say play? On three, ready? 1, 2, 3, play.
Especially when
want to get your feedback about what your thoughts, your first impressions about this before we get into really looking at the self-evaluation and the other evaluation. Cynthia, what was your immediate reaction to this?
I found myself thinking how people view us. I mean, we have a way of viewing ourselves, and I remember a pastor had shared something with us years ago where he said one one's perspective of themselves is inadequate. And so when I saw the portraits, how one person described themselves and the other person, just the difference. It's just amazing how people see us. All of us so commercial. That's been neat.
That is neat. I really like it. It touched me. Let me get some feedback from this side. Tell me what your thoughts were on that. Tim? Or
is it tricky exercise? It's difficult for me to hear everything we're saying. So it made it a little harder to watch. I guess it just sort of brought out the fact that when you think about yourself and the way you present, you probably have a little different framework in mind than those around you who are not looking at you through your own internal lens. If you have a lot of internal angst, for example, you might project that out in the way you self-describe, whereas somebody else might just be able to see, oh, you got a nice smile. So that's it. I do like the ending message to it, which is basically, let's look on the bright side of ourselves and not get all hung up on whatever flaws we have. It was nice.
very good, thank you. Appreciate that. One more. Somebody else's thoughts, Tim, on this?
It just reminded me of the kindness of strangers. That people are looking at themselves, they can be very critical. Somebody else tends to be nice, look for the positives, the favorable things. That's what we're looking
Yeah. This gave me a lot of thought as to how can we synthesize it in a way that we can apply it and as Toastmasters and as evaluators, because we do evaluate speeches so that we can grow and we empower ourselves. But let's put it into a way that it's much more easier to understand and conscious for us to look at ourselves and others. And I think I wanted to present the video so that you could see that in terms of how they put it together. It would have taken me 15 or 20 minutes to explain what it was done in 3 minutes, and that came across very distinct. Here's the thought. We now can agree that there's a self-evaluation and there's an other evaluation. And when does that happen? Well, I will tell you that it's happening often. The key is, how do we make it conscious so that it empowers us? And I came up with something that makes it succinct for us to evaluate ourselves first, I'll go with that, and then for others. For ourselves, whether you're preparing for speech or after you've given a speech and go through that evaluation, how am I going to do and how did I do? Maybe they're two different things or the same thing. This is a formula that may help you. It has helped me. If you grab a sheet of paper and I want you to put on it 4 quadrants. Draw a line straight down and a line straight across. Now, you're not going to be able to see this clearly, so I'll describe it. On the top quadrant, for the acronym SOAR, S-O-A-R, we're going to have on the top left the strengths. What are the strengths? The next one's going to be, what is the opportunities? The opportunities, I'll cover this in a moment. The next one, and I'd like to put it in the bottom right, or to your left, would that be? My right. A for aspirations. Now aspirations, and I'll go into a little bit more, is forward thinking. And then the last letter, which is R for results. that you achieved or results currently. So let's look at, when we're evaluating ourselves, what are our strengths? We really want to start with a positive, if you would agree with that, Shannon?
I would agree with that.
That's the positive. So we always want to do that. Here's the clue, is that most people start with the negatives. Because, and I really can't say for sure that I know, but maybe is it inborn? Is it that we're fear, or we come from a negative position? So we really consciously want to look at the strengths and starting with that, so that we can look at that, even as challenging as it is. If you've asked somebody for their evaluation, they'll say, well, I didn't do well this, I didn't do that. They start with things that did not work. And it's important for ourselves to stop ourselves and say, there is a strength. As minute as that might be, we have a strength. We're alive, we breathe, we can start with that. So strengths, very important for us to get to a place that empowers us right away. Always for opportunities to improve. That's possibly the things. What didn't go well? What are the opportunities? Did I stand correctly? Did I move right? Did I speak succinctly? Did I have voice tonality? Did I do these things? And those are opportunities to improve. And we can enumerate that. If you find that if you start putting them on here and writing them down, you'll find the opportunities start to outnumber the strengths. And I think that's probably human nature, because we always want to continue to improve. As you saw in the video, there's some strengths, and then at the end, there's a different contrast. A is for aspirations. What is our goal? What is our outcome? What is it that we aspire to do, be, have in a presentation if we're giving a speech, or in life that we're going through? Our aspirations. It's critical to look, or important too, to look at where we're heading. Because if we have no goal, direction, or aspiration to head to, any road will take it. R is for what results did you really get? What results did you get? Something that's tangible. So you have aspirations of the future, but results is the present. It allows you to work on the present so that you can fix the present to align you with the future, the aspirations. So our strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and what results did I get that are realistic? Those are 4 components that we can take for self-evaluation. If you look at the video and think back on that, that's when someone was describing themselves and blending in the emotions with the aspirations. Let's look at another model where we look at evaluating others. Take another sheet of paper, if you will, and on it, it's, again, draw the quadrants. One line down vertically, another line horizontally. And here is when we're evaluating others. Now here's the thing that I also wrestled with, I have to confess, is that, well, shouldn't I use the same one if I evaluate myself to evaluate others? I mean, why make it complex? And I did struggle with this, thinking, no, there is a difference. Just as you could see the difference of the pictures in the video, totally different pictures. There is a difference. And I thought, well, what is the difference? The difference is somebody else evaluating that person. And it's external evaluation that is totally different. And if it's different, then therefore the process is different. That not so much the sequence, that there's a different total process. And so let's go through each one of those. Again, we start with strengths. Again, the positive. Certainly want to empower somebody. And then we also continue with the opportunities to improve. So that way it's very clear, strengths and opportunities to improve. Here's where it differs from the SOAR model, is on the third quadrant is what results did you get? What results were obtained so that way they get immediate feedback of that. And the next one is potential. From an external source, you could say, here's your potential. Because, quite frankly, we don't know what their aspirations are for a person. We would be guessing what their aspirations are, but we could see the potential of where they could be going. And that, as a good coach, a good mentor, a good evaluator, you could say, here's your potential. You could go further. You can give this presentation somewhere else. If you look at the results that you had and the opportunities to improve, you can be further along. And that's a coach that empowers somebody else. It's a different model. It's a different model for ourselves and for others. So, here's the challenge that I have for all of you, is to really take this to heart. It really takes a simplistic approach, a one-page sheet, if you will, a canvas, if you will, that you could just evaluate, as you've done it already, evaluate someone with those. And we're used to doing that. My challenge is this, that you, all of you, have been taught 2 of those 4 quadrants, the strengths and opportunities, and it's stopped. My challenge to you is to go further. With the SOAR, look at the aspirations, and you may do that subconsciously, but be conscious about that, the aspirations, and what actual results that you get. With the SOAR model, the strengths, opportunities, the results, but also share with someone their potential. You really empower them. So, if you're thinking further of how to proceed with this, not only take this home and do this at home, but I also want to invite you to an empowering session that would allow you to participate, that takes this concept even further and allows you to participate in a negotiation seminar on May 14th, the 15th, and 16th.
Enjoyed your presentation, and I am very intrigued by this idea, and it seemed remarkably appropriate that you did this right after Cynthia was telling us other evaluation techniques. So my mind now is filled with all different kinds of evaluation techniques. One of the things that I would have suggested is you could have had these sheets already prepared, because you know we use these little sheets. Well, give us a new sheet to write things down for you, so that we could sort of get the idea of how to use this. A couple of the things that I really appreciated was you talked about Dove, and I'm very glad you said Dove the soap, because I was thinking of Dove the chocolate and wondering exactly how this was going to work, and I was thinking taste test, because I knew there was something about evaluations. Thank you for clarifying that early on. I also thought that this is the first time I think I've heard the vocal variety tease when you said, I'm going to show it to you. And oh, I just wanted to hear, I wanted it. The way you said that was just fabulous. I think another thing you might have done was tell us how long the video would be. When you told us about this video, and you could have just said it's a 3-minute video and I'm going to show it, just to give us some idea of how long it was. I really did enjoy the video. Kudos for that. For those who can't hear, you can turn on the CC. You could have suggested that, so then people can read what they're saying. The results thing confused me. I'm not really sure exactly what one would put in for results. So I gave a speech. I could have been a little better on the vocal variety and the eye contact. The results were, I wasn't stoned. People didn't fall asleep. I'm not exactly sure what I would put down. People seemed to enjoy it. That part I'm a little confused about. Also, just logically, you talked about the fact that aspirations are on this quadrant and results are on this one. I think that's to make it soar, but logically then you said that the results are the present and the aspirations are the future. The future always seems to be over here, because on a timeline that's where it would go, and being a very logical person, that's a little disturbing to me. But I really do find this interesting, and I think I may try reworking our little sheets a little bit, and I'll put down, as suggested by Rocky Romero, and if you can give us more examples of results, I think that would be very helpful.
I liked how you kind of jogged up there, so I kind of knew it was going to be a bit motivational. I don't know if that's just your personality or not. And I liked your rhetorical questions in the very beginning. Kind of set the mood a bit. And when I know you'd been working a lot to get the video and the technology set up, and I was worried. Technology can go good or bad, so I put the video kind of in between, and I know you had the users to set up to have everything synced. So that to me is kind of, if you're going to use technology, I understand we're limited here, so it's just kind of to use it to your space advantage, and you know, the sound and the visuals that you have. I wish, when, as she said, when you're using the grid, you know, to maybe have the handout. I wasn't necessarily thinking a handout, but maybe what I noticed, it was on your screen, kind of small, to have it bold. So those were what came out. But I loved how you described what we would be seeing. And unlike Shannon, I knew what Dove was, and I'm familiar with that campaign, and it's close to home, and I really enjoyed it. So, and then the challenge of how we evaluate ourselves and others, and what we're going to do with it and bring it to our speeches, I thought was great, because it brought us in and how we're going to use it in our daily lives.
First time I've ever heard you speak, really enjoyed it. I thought overall the thing I liked about the talk the most was its substance, that you were talking up to us and not down to us, that you were attempting to raise the bar here and bring in some philosophical thoughts. I thought that made the overall a unique approach to a Toastmaster speech. I liked it, in terms of the speech itself, I liked the way you threw in some of the compare and contrast, or the yin and yang of language. You talked about ascending and descending. You talked about empowering and disempowering. Those sorts of little verbal yin-yangs really get the audience to think, and I enjoyed that part of the speech a lot. In terms of the growth opportunity, the only thing I'd suggest is, on a practical basis, make sure the volume of that top computer is loud enough that people can hear throughout the room. That was the only problem I had with it. I had to struggle a little bit with it. In terms of other things moving forward, the potential, I would love to hear you give a talk about those people in your life who have inspired you, who you look up to, that have sort of helped you develop this character that came through in such an exemplary manner in the speech that we just heard.
Rocky, I think the thing I liked the best about your speech was your speaking style, because you were really kind of having a discussion with us. You weren't lecturing us or talking at us. I kind of felt like we were sitting in a parlor having a discussion together. And just that approach, I would say, really, that is a really strong, nice, relaxed. I felt very relaxed, and I wanted to hear what he had to say, just by your body language and your tone. And the way it was organized worked very well for me. I got the outline at the beginning. I even wrote it down, and I got the SOAR and SMAR piece. So I was looking forward to hear about self-evaluation and other evaluation. And I also liked how the emphasis was to empower more than disempower. I really got it. I got the message, and it sunk home right away. The fact that we tend to be too critical of ourselves, and we start with that, and we've got to flip-flop it. So there's a lot of coaching for me, a lot of things I will use. I liked how you said we want to make the self-other evaluation conscious, and I'd actually like to hear another presentation on that very topic. And if you give us the forms along with it, you know, at the beginning, like everyone mentioned, Cynthia said it repeats, so that would be helpful for me too.
I think that was an excellent speech. It's really very important to understand how evaluations are developed and the theory behind them, and the fact that there is to your own opinion of yourself and somebody else's opinion of yourself. And when you think about it, there's like multiple opinions of everybody, thinking about everybody else too. But the speech really brings that up very well. My suggestion for improvement was, you talked a lot about the video, but there seemed to be a gap in the time at the point of when you began talking about the video and when the video finally came out, I was getting anxious about that. So I would move those closer together. But overall, this is a speech that really explains the theory behind a very important part of the Toastmasters experience and also experience in the rest of our lives of evaluations. And I congratulate you for bringing that out.
One of the things I find challenging about your speeches is they tend to be conceptual, at least for me, and abstract, and I struggle with that. But you had a way of wording it and me actually drawing it out that just brought it home for me, so I appreciate that so much. I like the fact you got the audience feedback after the video. I thought that was very engaging. I like the fact that you said, I choose to show the video as to trying to explain it. I think that worked extremely, extremely well. I thought about when you started talking about the source, something my voice teacher would say to me. She would give me a compliment or tell me that I've completed a song well, and the first thing I would say, well, you know, I think I missed this note. So when you gave the example how we tend to do the negative first, that just brought that to my mind. I like the forward thinking for aspirations. The only improvement is, again, I sort of got lost with results. So if you can just clarify that a little for me. I really enjoyed the speech. It was a very good eye-opener.
Welcome to the Next Step All Evaluation Meeting. First we started out with Cynthia, your thoughts about evaluation, but now we come into Rocky, who continues to develop, build those ideas. Rocky, one great thing you did, one thing you taught me as a speaker was the importance of pausing. Pause is powerful. No one does pauses as well as Rocky does. Pauses just pull you in because you think on the pause. So many speakers, they just kind of rattle on. Maybe you've done that yourself, I've done that. But it's about the pause. And Rocky reminds me. You reminds everyone of the importance of that pause. Other thing is that you've got a really great use of examples. Examples are very effective. There is something better than examples. Going to get to that in a little bit. People are saying the examples basically work. Examples basically are useful. And then you did a beautiful job, we talked about earlier, developing speeches beginning with the benefits. You will get, you will discover, you will find out, you will learn, you'll become better, a better person, a better evaluator, a better club. Begin with the benefits. Pulls the audience in, lets them know what's in it for them. Now, as a very experienced speaker, professional speaker, salesman, it's always challenging to find things to talk about in development. One minor thing I'm going to focus on is how a lectern becomes a magnet, especially when you get really close to it. You want to do something with it. Some grab it as if they're afraid it might fly away. Some lean on it like it suddenly became really heavy. And in your case, you kind of put your hands on it. Sometimes you use your hands, but sometimes you just kind of put your hands on it. The thing about it is it kind of takes the energy out when you put your hand on the lectern. I always think the energy is collected and more powerful. You stand away from the lectern and stand tall. Another thought is when you get up there, to think about the word you. I know you like the word we, but the word you is so much more powerful. You will get this. You will discover this. You will find out. We, us is kind of general because it's always somebody else doing the we. Oh, we're going to do this together. Yeah, that guy's going to handle it. I know. We're going to do it. Yeah, he'll handle it. You is the powerful thing that pulls people in. And then finally, what's more powerful than examples is a story. Examples tell, stories sell. Stories need to be seen, known, and heard. And a personal story about how this SOAR transformed your life, how you started using it, and it really changed it around, and it can help others, that would be great. Or just a simple dialogue, maybe, where you could have a dialogue in your speech where between, here's what the person said on the outside, here's what the person said about themselves, here's what the person said about the other, evaluating them, and how they have a dialogue back and forth. One thing, Rocky, that really became aware of in your speech was about the kindness of strangers.